Yes. Thank you, Lizzo, for ushering us in to another episode of Day to Day with Dorothy. DJ Didi's on the ones and twos. Hi, Yarn for Life Studio. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Camera One, Facebook. Hello, Camera Two, Instagram. Shoulder rolls for everyone. So, look, if you remember, I said I was going to get a new laptop, and I did. I got a new laptop. I did what I said I would do, right? It's this whole say, do, co thing. Say what you're going to do what you said you were going to do, and communicate if you can't, right? Um, but before we jump into chitter chat, a little bit about today's episode, we are going to be talking about this idea of seeking advice. So today's episode is called Can I Pick Your Brain? We'll talk a little bit about advice versus feedback and why advice wins and can really be a game changer as you advance in your career. So that is today's topic, and I will be your host, Dorothy Enriquez. Listen, chief thought leader and founder of the communication strategist that I affectionately call TC. Yes, so let me put this title in Instagram. And then we'll do a little chitter chat. Can I pick your brain? So I thought that that was a cute title because I think in the world of work, right? And then especially in the world of entrepreneurship, side hustling, all of that magic, people do that quite a bit. They want to pick your brain, and then sometimes I find that it is not an even exchange. And other times it is absolutely a win win. And that's something that we definitely want. We want it to be a win win for sure. So, a little bit on chitter chat I have here, as you might be like, well, what is it? So, this is, look, this is my house shoe. Ooh, there we go. From Lux Ankara. And y'all, I love it because I just lounge around in these house shoes. It's got, this sole at the bottom that is waterproof. So I could walk outside in it, but I don't. Now, here's why I think I really like a good house shoe. A, because I grew up in Japan. And so if you know, like in Asian cultures, you do not, do not, under any circumstances, walk around the house in your outside shoes ever. So, a lot of times, so growing up in Japan, a lot of times people would have socks, like community socks or community slippers that you could put on your feet in order to enter their home because you were either leaving your shoes at the door or outside of the home. But on top of that, even before I moved to Japan, my mom was like the slippers Nazi. And you always had to be in slippers. And as a kid, I hated slippers. I liked walking around barefoot. So now that there's this like snazzy, fancy indoor shoe, it literally is an indoor shoe, I'm pretty jazzed about it. So that's what I have going on. If there are any fellow Luxies tuning in, welcome Luxies to Day to Day with Dorothy. Shoulder roll, shoulder roll. So if you don't follow Lux Ankara, you should. I love that account. I love that account. And listen, you know I love a good account. I am here for the magic. So, what do you think about this hair, y'all? I feel like I feel like I'm enjoying it. So, listen, in this journey of being natural, right? It's your hair just does whatever it wants. But I think today it's seriously cooperating. But I am probably getting ready to switch products yet again. And so I think I'm going to try Naturally Bliss by Maya. Hey, girl, hey. I'm really excited. So I need to put my order in, get my life together because I'm ready. I'm ready to go next level. Yes, I am. All right, so let's jump into it. Can I pick your brain? Welcome to another episode of Day to Day with Dorothy. You know that we have switched to 1 day a week, and it seems like we're all adjusting quite nicely. Got some great feedback on last week's episode, Cappuccino No Foam, Amp Show the Road. Yes, I really liked putting that episode together, and then I liked doing it even more. So I'm here for the magic. Okay, so I'm your host, Dorothy Enriquez. I am the chief thought leader and founder of The Communication Strategist, a boutique learning and leadership development firm where I help ordinary people become remarkable leaders. Because I always say, why be ordinary when you could be remarkable? Yes, 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 exactly. So, in this space, what I like to do for Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is really speak to the corporate hustlers. The corporate hustler is the woman who's between the age of 24, 25 and 34, 35 ish, right? Give or take. And so in this space, right, we could potentially be just starting out, right? Because what I've also noticed is that folks are graduating from college later than when and my peer set were graduating. But also, folks are taking a break after college or going to college just later in general. So it's not like they're starting at the same time, like starting directly out of high school, 17, 18. Sometimes they're taking a break, a gap year, whatever. Or they're graduating and then taking a break, or graduating and then starting a business and then going to work. Like there's just all of this flux. And so that's why the target demographic for the communication strategist on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube is 25 to 35, 24 to 34 ish, somewhere in there ish, right? And so that is how I lay things out. That's how I pick the topics. That's how I, really try to curate the content so that it will be helpful and specific. So, does that mean that if you're 43 that it won't be helpful? No, not at all. I think it will still be helpful. I think it'll just be more of a reminder depending on where you are in your career. So, just had to give that little disclaimer in case you're like, well, who exactly is this for? Is it for me? Right? So, today's episode is, can I pick your brain? And oftentimes, when people say, can I pick your brain, they sometimes have a curated set of questions. Sometimes they've got one big question that they're trying to navigate, and they want to gain insight from you because they think that, you're an expert. And in some instances, right, the they is you. So you might be reaching out to someone saying, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to get your take on this, get your feedback, your thoughts, your insights, whatever. And so I want to talk about this whole concept, these big ideas around advice and feedback, and just how the role that they play in helping us build these amazing careers. So, what's his name? Gary Brunninson, I believe, in an article sponsored by CNBC in a publication called Make It, right? He said, offering advice is a sign of good leadership, and asking for advice is a sign of intelligence. If and when the exchange goes well, both parties benefit, right? So it's this two pronged deal. It's a sign of good leadership when you offer it, and then it's a sign of intelligence when you ask for it. And I'm like, you know what? I am here for all of this. And like I always say, right? Part of the reason why I like to um, operate in this space of giving away this content is just because, oh my God, I know how much I struggled. Oh, I barely survived corporate. And I just don't, I feel like yes, I may have barely survived. That doesn't mean you should have to. Like, why should you be on the struggle bus like I was? So unnecessary. So I found that as I started to ramp up in my career, I would say, like, 4 years in, listen, slowpoke Rodriguez over here, right? So as I was ramping up in my career, I would say like 4 years in, that's when I started grasping this concept of seeking advice. And so by the middle of my career, I was good at seeking advice and really good at seeking feedback. And so what I noticed is when I would seek out the feedback, and I had peers who taught me this too, it's this idea of getting people to tell you the truth and teeing things up and getting things set and ready so that you can find out what's really going on, especially women of color. Because a lot of times what we find is that women of color aren't getting that real tangible feedback that they can do something with. So as a result, because the feedback's not being freely given, we got to go get it, right? So that you can do what you need to do so that you can accelerate your ascent and all of that jazz. And here's what I learned, right? Asking for advice can really free your mind. Like for real, because it can open up, listen, it can open up possibilities that you never considered. I remember working at a company in California, right? And that's the company that brought me over to Milwaukee. And I was seeking advice from a couple different, leaders within the organization and just kind of sharing my concerns around the idea of accelerating my ascent in the form of relocation. And the reason why that was so helpful and the reason why it set me free is because one woman in particular, she was like, Dorothy, I don't want you to look at this like forever. She said, I have moved with the organization 3 times. They have paid for it every single time. And all I promised myself was to try it out. And so I told myself, I'm going to give it roughly 12 to 18 months. Try this city on for size, try this location on for size, and see how I feel about it before I just, give up the ghost and go to a new location. I don't want you to feel like if you move from California to Milwaukee that you have to stay there forever. You can move, you can switch locations, you could even work for a new company. I wouldn't want you to do that, but you have to do what's best for you. But don't feel like you're not going to take this opportunity because you feel like you got to stay there for 10 years, because you absolutely don't. She's like, I worked in the Milwaukee location. It wasn't for me. I stayed there all of about 15, 16 months, and then I went to Texas after that, right? So offering advice, right, or seeking advice in that instance can really open up your mind and free it, because we don't always know what all the options are. We don't always have all the answers. We don't always know what all the possibilities are. Hi, outspoken wifey and shoulder roll. Thanks for tuning in. So, it's also when we're seeking advice, right? It's also a way to get folks talking. Cuz here's what's true. People's favorite subject is themselves. And so when you say, "Hey, outspoken wifey, hey, Yon for Life Studios, I'd really like to get your take on something. I'd really like to get some advice from you because you've been in the space of, learning and development for children for years. You've got multiple accreditations, you've got multiple awards. I'd really like to get your take on something." Then you know what that leader's gonna think. She's gonna think that you've got great taste. Right? Because you have come to her and she is a pro, she's an expert. But also, she's going to look at you favorably, like, this is someone who doesn't swear up and down that they know all the things. This is someone who doesn't, take this perspective of, well, I've gotten this far and no one's helped. Well, no one else was trying to give me any, feedback, insight, whatever. And these things are favorable. Also, as we are strategic with who we seek advice from, they will be able to kind of take that torch on our behalf if other people need to get involved. Because here's what's also true. I'm in a virtual meeting. Nice. So here's what's also, listen, multitasking. Here's what's also true. You seek the advice, and now you have a co-conspirator, right? Because now they want to make sure that you get the help that you need, or you get the answers that you need in order to move this, journey, venture, whatever forward, right? So, couple of things when we are seeking the advice, right? When we're the ones saying, "Hey, can I pick your brain?" So, you definitely want to start with a positive tone, right? Naturally, can we appeal to this person's positive face? That's face negotiation theory, right? By Stella Ting Toomey. I've talked about that before. It's like, oh my God, I love how you've been showing up on. Well, okay, I'll give you a real example. So, as I kind of go through some of these different tips, right? So, a woman out of nowhere, well, is it really out of nowhere? So, a woman who, like, I didn't know had been tuning in to Day to Day with Dorothy. Now, as many of you have guessed, my target audience is women of color, and I especially have a super duper extra extra love for black women, right? So, this particular woman, she was white, and she reached out like, "Oh my God, I really want to, jump into this space and have my side hustle that could eventually be a full-time venture. I'd love to pick your brain." Right? So, starting with the positive tone, and in this reach out, she was like, "I love your show. I watch all the time." Okay. Do you love the show? Interesting. Let us chat. Right? So, what she did was she's appealing to my positive face per face negotiation theory. And then we hop on a call, and she's like, "Oh my God, I love the shoulder roll. I remember this episode where you talked about ABC. I remember this, where you did XYZ." So that lets you know that this individual has done their homework. Oh my God. You know how many times people have not done their homework? Hi, Kermit. Shoulder roll. So, case in point, as I want to share some tips as you reach out asking people for advice, right? So, I have the podcast, the Business Besties podcast, right? And that's where, we chitter chat about all things business, right? So, someone reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. I love what you're doing with the podcast." Crickets. Anyone who listened to that podcast knows we never had guests. Ever. Never. It was always just the two of us. Right? So, in this spirit of, can I pick your brain? I'd like to seek advice. I'd like to get your help. I'd like to partner. The person hasn't done their homework. So, you want to start with a positive tone, and that did not help her case in that instance, right? But then the other thing that you want to do is you want to identify the type of advice that you want, right? Is this discreet advice? Do we kind of just need to keep it between us? Is this going to be advice where you're seeking wise counsel, right? Like, you've known this person for ages, and you know that if you sit at their feet for a little bit, the answers will come. Is it more like coaching? I need coaching and development in this space. Is it more like mentoring? I can tell you honestly, like, I've reached out to like friends, and I've been like, "Hey, I'd love to get some coaching from you on X subject." And then they're happy to help, right? Because we love to flex our muscles in those areas of expertise that we have. Hi, Tawana J. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, shoulder roll. So, for everyone just tuning in, today we are talking about seeking advice, right? This whole idea of, can I pick your brain? How can we do it strategically in order to advance our careers? So, you want to tell them what type of advice you're looking for, right? So that they know how to show up. Because let's say that it's discreet advice. Well, then they know that they cannot go and solicit all these other people in the mix, because this is really just between you and them, for example. And then you also want to have some specific details, like, what have you come up with up to this point? What are you looking to do next? What have you been trying out? All of that, so that this person doesn't have to do your work for you, because that's not really how advice works. They don't want to do the work for you. They want to essentially build upon what you've done so far, or potentially steer you in a new direction of exploration that you got to do, research and study that you got to engage in. So here's another example. Oh, and then last but not least, just making sure you're asking the right person, right? So in the book Give and Take, there's a woman who, has an opportunity, like she gets a new promotion, right? And she's been wanting this promotion because it's going to give her more money. But in the midst of this promotion, bundled up in there, she has to move to a new city. The challenge that she has with that is that she's in the process of getting her MBA in the current city that she's in, and that school that she's enrolled in doesn't do online, none of that. So she has a dilemma. If I don't take the job, I could potentially lose my job. I definitely am not going to get the promotion. I'll be able to finish school, but I'm not going to be able to continue to take advantage of the company paying for me to attend school through, the company grant program, what have you. So there's all these stipulations. If she takes the job, she's got to drop out of school. But if she doesn't take the job and then she leaves the company, then she can't continue to go to school anyway. So she's got a dilemma. So she has to then seek advice. Now, here's what some of us do in this precarious situation. We panic, stress all the way out, have sleepless nights, and then we just try to figure something out on our own. But why when we don't have to? This is the perfect time, especially when you're in a bit of a pickle, to seek advice. And seeking advice in the space of not acting like you've got all the answers, right? So, what she ends up doing is she goes to someone in HR and then she asks in a way of seeking wise counsel and says, you know what? Here's the dilemma. There's this opportunity for this great job. It would be a promotion, it would mean more money, except I'd have to move. And if I move, I'd have to drop out of school. And the company's already paying for my schooling. I would hate to have to do that. I don't know what to do. What would you do if you were me? And this director of HR, whatever role he had, he thought to himself, like, huh, that is a bit of a dilemma. Let me meditate on that and get back to you. And so, they take a praise break or whatever. They come back around the bend. And the solution that he comes up with is, why don't we have you take the promotion and stay in school at the same time? How about that? And so she essentially is like, yeah, I can't. Like, I can't afford to fly back and forth, right? Like, especially based on my salary, I can't fly back and forth every week for school. And he's like, got you covered. You're going to use the company jet to fly back and forth because it takes that route multiple times a week anyway. And then if the company jet is not available, we will pay for the commercial flight and we'll pay for your rental car whenever you need one. All because she sought advice and she didn't tell the person she was seeking advice from how to do it, how to come up with it. She already has all the answers. No, she was seeking wise counsel. And the solution blew her mind. And because she sought advice, she was able to stay in school, get the promotion, move to a new city, all of the things. Hello, the Khadijah D. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are talking about seeking advice and how this can help us accelerate our ascent at work. So, last big idea. When it comes to advice, as you accelerate in your career, this is way better than feedback. So when we're a little bit more junior, feedback is it's spectacular because a lot of times we're developing our skill and we don't always know what we're doing. We're like learning, we're growing, and feedback is perfect. But as we get more seasoned, we really want to try and seek advice. Hey, I'd love to get your take on that presentation that I just did. What do you think? What do you think I could do differently, or what did you like about it? And here's what you'll also notice as you seek advice from other professionals: it will be more specific and more actionable. And I think it's because we have like panic receptors when it comes to feedback. A lot of us cringe at the idea of feedback, even though we know we need it. And in some instances, we know we want it. But feedback has really just gotten a bad rap. Advice doesn't have a bad rap, other than the whole like, I didn't call for you, so don't come for me, the whole unsolicited advice deal. But because I think feedback has gotten such a bad rap, as we become more senior in our roles, like we've been working 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, seek advice instead of feedback. And what you'll find is people give you so much more actionable nuggets, because it just feels like more of a dialogue versus do this, do this, do this, right? Is that making sense? So, lastly, don't ask everyone, right? Not all advice is good advice. Not everyone is looking out for your best interest. And we want to watch who we seek wise counsel from, because not all counsel is good counsel, right? So we have to use wisdom, we have to use good judgment. So the big things to remember is making sure that you start with a positive tone, do your research, do your homework. As you come to this person, make sure that you've done your due diligence. So don't say, you know what I'm saying? I love how you, I love all of your Calvin Klein and Michael Kors stuff, for example. And they're like, I never wear Calvin Klein or Michael Kors. All I do is coach all day. Then already you're not starting off on a positive tone. Like, you want to make sure that you've done your due diligence. And I gave the example of the woman who wanted to have the podcast, um, and she hadn't listened to a single episode, and we could tell. So you want to start with a positive tone. You want to be specific about the type of advice you're looking for. You want to be prepared, right? And make sure that you ask the right person. These are the pieces that are important. And so, in the end, what we know for sure is that when we're able to offer sound advice, that is good leadership. And then when we are able to seek or ask for advice, that is a sign of intelligence, right? So, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that the next time that you ask for advice, you feel a little bit more prepared. It's this whole spirit of, can I pick your brain? But make sure that it is a win-win. So back to the original story of the woman who picked my brain. It was a win-win. I learned from her, she learned from me, and there may be an opportunity for me to do a speaking engagement at her organization as well. Like, that's awesome. It's not like this one-sided thing where you just kind of feel a little bit used and abused at the end of it, right? So making sure that this interaction is mutually beneficial as often as possible. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you've got any ideas for topics you'd like me to cover as we continue to redefine the color of leadership, literally and figuratively, when it comes to corporate America, and just accelerate our ascent in general, send them my way. DM me if you know me, text me, email me at info@dorothyhenriquez.com, or just, shoot me a note, and I will definitely take a look. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and there were some helpful gems and nuggets, please share it. Click the little share button on Facebook or that little paper plane right there on Instagram, and share this video with another lady leader. I love being able to sit down with the corporate hustlers as we get this corporate America thing together. Like I said, I barely survived corporate. I don't want that to be your journey, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to survive, sis. You can thrive. And I, Dorothy Enriquez, your personal change agent, I am here to help. So I will see you back here next week on Wednesday while the little baby is napping. She'll probably be asleep for another 20 minutes. She's living her best life right now. So last but not least, book club. If you have been plugging along, book club is for you. If you haven't plugged along just yet and you're curious, you want to bet on you. You want an opportunity to thrive, right? You want to work on your courage and confidence or continue to build up the courage and confidence that you already have. The Plug Book Club is for you, even if you don't have the plug yet, right? So if you've got the plug, make sure you check your email because you've got special coupons and things like that in your email. If you don't have the plug, you can still come. This is going to be a leadership party, if you will. It's next week, Wednesday. This is going to be a party. This is an opportunity for us to get together and build network and connection. Ooh, hi, Kayla Ray. Oh, thanks for tuning in. It's an opportunity for us to build networks and connections because we know relationships. We have to connect, then lead. There's going to be an opportunity for us to share our journey when it comes to how we've been plugging along if we've already got the book. And there will be a deep dive in confidence and courage. What I have noticed is that a lot of times women of color don't focus in this space. They focus on a lot of other things, but they don't necessarily focus on these two pillars in their leadership, confidence and courage, to help them do what they got to do at work. We're going to do a deep dive so that you can get what you need, and whatever you don't, you can just leave it on the table. But you don't want to miss this leadership party, the Plug Book Club. The link is in the bio. Go ahead and click on it so that you can register for next week. I cannot wait to see you there. Kayla Ray, girl, I miss you too. Eon, thanks for tuning in. I will see you back here next week. So, hope to see you at book club. I cannot wait. All right, y'all. Until next week, remember, you are a leader even if you don't have direct reports. And you, my friend, are required. It is your duty to lead from every single seat that you sit in. Until next week, y'all. Bye. All right, Facebook. You know you always get the last. Listen, and I've got shoulder for y'all today, right? For the perfect shoulder roll. I will see y'all next week. Bye.